Hello, welcome to TSC Talks, the podcast inspired by the condition known as tuberous sclerosis complex, which causes benign tumors to grow in all the major organs of the body. This podcast is for those directly affected, parents, caregivers, anyone who's ever struggled to make sense of unimaginable circumstances and find a way. My name is Jill Woodworth, and I am your host. Buckle up. We're going for a ride outside the box, off the grid, down many a rabbit hole, and back as we wrangle a way to case manage and stay sane. Talk about it, compare notes, find the experts, pick their brains. No magic bullet, but we are not alone. Hi. Next up is Tyrone Williams. He is from Southern California. He popped up on my LinkedIn with a story that blew me right out of the water. If I was in water, I would have been blown out of it. But I was at my desk and on my computer, and he popped up and said, "Hey, I'm interested in being on your podcast. I have a story to tell you. My uncle was killed by the cartel. I grew up in the other side of the industry. My dad was a smuggler, and I've had a horrible motorcycle accident that I almost died in, and I'm committed to the plant, and it's just been, I have a deep connection to it going way back." And I was like, whoa, you had me at hello there, Tyrone. Really, just stuff that I'd never talked to anybody in an interview form about. So I was all over it, and we've had a couple of conversations, maybe three. And what you're going to listen to is Tyrone's story. Lisa did a lot of work on putting this together, and no fault of Tyrone. We had a rambling conversation both times. It was hard to stay on topic sometimes. We had a good connection. I feel like I can relate to Tyrone's story in some ways, because his message is, you've got to consider the history. You've got to consider the roots of the cannabis industry, the toil and suffering that so many people went through to, keep this plant and the movement alive in the early years, and the other side of the industry, the picture of that, and all this huge just amount of lived experience that people have, and people coming into the industry and just thinking that they know everything right away. You can pick it up really quickly, and of course you can in some ways, and people are really smart and they have lots of money and they get involved, and it's great. I'm not faulting it all, but then if you're stepping on the people that have been here, that are still down and out, but have a lot of information, they have a lot of creative ideas, they cannot be ignored. And so I'm here to share Tyrone's story. I guess I feel like, as a parent of children with tuberous sclerosis complex, and just as a human being living to the age of 53, you go through shit, and you don't get credit for it in terms of a job or in terms of degrees sometimes. And sometimes you're just caught in the middle of it, and you come out the other side and you feel like, wow, you've really learned a lot, but you have nothing to show. And it's not about having something to show, but it's about, making that time, that even if it wasn't all, wonderful work experiences or life experiences, making it count. Or looking back at those pieces when you were falling apart and things were going to crap, that those pieces that were lingering out there that you knew that were pulling you through, and that reaching back for the gems from those times and infusing your current situation with the information you gleaned the hard way from experiential the process. And I'm an experiential learner. I think Tyrone is too, though I think he was born as an old soul. And just really be able to maintain a positive attitude after circumstance, after situation, after misunderstanding happened. So I'm really grateful to Tyrone for reaching out. I think you're going to hear more from Tyrone. He's got some really interesting ideas too, products that I think would be awesome to crowdfund or whatnot. I'm going to say take it away, Tyrone. Thanks so much for tuning in. A lot of stuff is happening at TSC Talks, so I'm not going to talk about it now, but take it away, Tyrone.
Tyrone, this is Tyrone Williams, and I'm really happy to have you on the podcast. I bumped into you on LinkedIn, and I don't know if you read a post or you knew I was a podcaster, but you popped up, gave me a few lines from your history, about growing up, the cartels and whatnot. And I was like, oh, wow, this is really something that I haven't talked to anybody that's had this kind of lived experience. So really psyched to talk to you.
Yeah, it's wild because I have one friend left from, the generation between about 72 and 78, that's the most overdosed and least educated generation that there is because of the hippies and things like that, except if your family wasn't in that type of industry, you were then hatted and walked along the way. And those are the people jumping into the industry that have no respect for it. So
okay. Yeah. So I think that is what kind of caught my attention, that you had a real passion, which as you should, for people respecting the history of cannabis, and everything that families have been ripped apart, tragedies gone through, and we take it for granted, that this is.
And the realization, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
the
go
realization
ahead.
Really needs to be the fact that we kept this industry going until these professionals would finally wake up and open their mouths, because there was doctors, lawyers, judges, everybody smoking way before this stuff was medically legal, anything legal, when it was still a bad thing to do.
Right.
And nobody would stand up and say anything. So it took us putting our lives at risk, our families at risk, to finally get it to the point where it showed that, wow, maybe this isn't a problem. Maybe it is a good thing that these doctors and lawyers and professionals woke up and said, wow, yeah, we agree.
Yeah. I can't imagine being in your position and having your history and then seeing it would be really, I would say for me, it would be triggering. If I was you, I would be like reading stuff and being mad all the time.
These joker brokers that are running around
that
have just jumped into the industry because they got some money from their family, and now they have, now they're able to do whatever they're able to do. And they'll cut anyone out to make $1.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's enough for everybody to eat. There doesn't need to be this huge greed in the industry. And that's what's occurring with all of these large manufacturers. It's just pure greed.
Yeah, I hear you. So let's jump into your story. And why don't you tell me a little bit about your early years, where you were born and grew up, and kind of start there.
Well, I'll give you let me give you the energy that put me together. My parents both had their fathers pass away before I was born. My grandfathers both were gone before I was alive. One of them was a fire chief. The other one was a stunt pilot. They both died doing their professions. So the energy that put me together was very intense. Mm-hmm. And at the time, my dad had his older brother and him had a smuggling operation, because my mother and my father had taken a trip in a Land Rover from San Diego down to Central America and drove the whole way, just meeting people and learning the language. And my mom was fluent in Spanish, so was my father. And so that making connections that whole way through in their early years. And that's what he tapped into with his brother because literally, if you put Blow and American, that Tom Cruise movie, The American, it's The American.
I think so.
If you put those two movies together, that was my life.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And that's the sad thing, is that, the cartels push the fact that, okay, well, we're moving anything, we'll put anything in there. And really, with the Contras and everything else, that was the government really supplying them with the ability to do that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were the ones paying them to take the guns down there to bring the drugs back.
So growing up in that atmosphere.
I was born in my bedroom in Leucadia. It was a midwife, and my dad was a flashlight, and my mom. And it took almost 3 days for her to finally push me out. So
3 days.
Yeah. They should have said, let's go to the hospital after the first 12 hours, but that wasn't the case in the 70s.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, you came into this world with some effort on your mother's part.
Definitely. And
Interesting.
I was called the Buddha baby, and my mom kept herself completely outside of everything that my father did. And my father was a woman hunter, and just all of the, everything that the worst
stereotypes.
Exactly. The worst stereotypes that you can imagine. That's my dad. Yeah, we really don't even have a relationship to this point.
Yeah. So your early years, you grew up watching, a lot of really extreme things.
Yeah, one of my first memories is sitting in a pile of money and throwing it up in the and weed and throwing it up in the air like Richie Rich.
Really?
And when I was 3 years old, we dropped my uncle off at the airport, and he was shot down by the Mexican military on his way back. He was a very, very good pilot, and it was a C-130 plane, so there's no way that it would have just fallen out of the sky.
Yeah, for sure. So got a plane crash, the cartels, and then your dad took over everything.
Exactly. And then my godfather, Angel, he was killed by the Mexican military in a big, blaze of glory at his house in Baja. So I, learned about that when I was way too young. A really crazy event that occurred, and I mean, I was kind of my mom's confidant. That's why I grew up so quick, because I didn't have really much.
Had to be.
I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have any, anybody to look to for, except for my grandmother on my mom's side. She gave me my mom. They both gave me my work ethic and my ability to love. And I will always love them for that, because, for my first 5 years, I had nothing but love. And even though there were these events, they weren't tragic to me because I was so young. And my mom was still, running around with me in a carrier, and, she was a thrift store shopper. She didn't care about money. My grandma would always tell her, grab some money, let's stuff it away just in case. And my mom would never do it. And
so
now
she kind of gave you what, as much as she could, because of probably the chaos of the situation. Intuitively, she knew that.
Well, and my father was only there maybe 1 or 2 days out of the month.
Okay.
So he would drop a little bit of money off, and he kept her on such a tight string that's, she enjoyed thrift store shopping, and she didn't mind riding her bike. And we lived in Lucadia. And so that's where the era started. And then all of the seeds started to go north.
Okay.
Because a friend of mine, his father was the first smuggler of hashish from Kandahar, Afghanistan.
No way. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and brought over some of the first seeds to the island of Maui. And that's where Maui Wowie came from. And Jerry Lopez, the lightning bolt surfboards, were built off of all of that.
Wow, what a cool connection.
Yeah, it's amazing. And our fathers both, were in what's called, if you look up the Brotherhood of Light, it was either on Netflix or on Amazon, but it's on YouTube. You can see clips of it. And that's about his side of his side was more a psychedelic family. And after they got into marijuana, they got into psychedelics. And so that was their forte, more or less. And so they were the ones who dropped all the acid out of the airplanes and stuff like that.
Oh, man.
You'll watch the movie and you'll just be blown away.
I'm going to look it up.
His uncle and aunt are both in the movie, and it's weird. What was kind of my older brother that passed away a while ago was his best friend, and we had never even met until about 1.5 years ago.
Wow.
So and we were just talking this morning, and I'm like, Johnny, how many are there left of us? Because this all started in Southern California.
Yep.
So really, how many are there left of us? We couldn't think of one.
Wow.
We couldn't think of one. I mean, my younger brother, he overdosed in 2009 and passed away. Oh, my
gosh. Sorry to hear.
Dylan got in a motorcycle accident. Some Mexicans flattened his tire when he was down in Mexico on his motorcycle, and he crashed his motorcycle and hit the only rock on the beach and cracked his head open, and they found him 2 days later on the beach, and that was, Johnny and I's friend. Yeah. So it's been extreme tragic events after another. And only, I've never held on to those. I've always held on to the things that I've learned from them.
That's ideal. And it speaks to your inner tenacity. And I don't know.
I've been called an old soul my entire life.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely an old soul. And yeah, I get it. I feel similarly. And I don't know, nobody's really called me an old soul, but I think I've come around to being one. I didn't always think in the way that I do now, but I think cannabis has definitely helped with that. So, I want to circle back a little bit to your stories. So
at about 4, we were living in Lucadia, Encinitas area until we had a house in Solana Beach that we were at, and I called in. I was going to an Encinitas Montessori preschool, and I called in sick. And my mom came to pick me up. When we were on our way home, she saw the garage door was partially open, and she knows she didn't leave it that way. So she told me to lay down in the back of the car, and all of a sudden I hear her scream. She had caught 3 men behind the door, masked, ready to kidnap us. So 2 of them came running after her. I watched them run after her. One ran over the fence. She got to the neighbor's house maybe 10 feet before it would have been too late.
Oh my goodness.
So got to the neighbor's house. They didn't notice me in the car, luckily. And then once you were in the neighbor's house, they took off.
Okay.
So that's something that I can still close my eyes and see.
Yeah, I'm sure that is very ingrained in you. I don't know how you can forget something like that. Yeah, so that's the kind of situation that you were kind of in growing up, where there was a lot of chaos and tragedy, but it sounds like your mom was just a real steady person.
Yeah, she was just really holistic, just solid. My grandma was really solid on my mom's side, and we had a great relationship. And she ended up moving to Hawaii when I was 10, and that was kind of harsh for my younger brothers. There was 3 of us. Now there's 2.
2. Wow. So you ended up working in the business, but then
when I was 19, I thought, maybe I could do it smarter than he did. So I did start growing indoors. I had 3 houses. We were actually very successful. The highest technology. We were working with General Hydroponics on their aeroflow systems. And I had just gotten rid of everything I had and pulled my equipment down just for some reason. I don't know why I did it. And a week after that, all 3 houses were raided, and they weren't able to get anything on me whatsoever. One of my partners went down for 6 years. The other one went down for 3. And luckily, like I said, I was able to get just shot free. I didn't even get a phone call to go testify or anything.
Wow.
At that point in my life, I said, you know what? I am never putting myself and my family in this position ever again. Because having to pray not to be persecuted every night
goodness. Pray not to die. Jeez.
That's how I lived throughout my entire childhood and life until I realized that, I need to raise myself and take myself out of these issues. So when I was 15, we moved to Carlsbad, and the funniest thing is we had a house that was one of my mom's friends, but her son had just graduated Carlsbad High School, and he was the largest pot dealer at Carlsbad. So in turn, I turned into that guy. So again, emulating what I had seen, I thought I could do it better. And after the extreme event, I did not want that feeling ever again. So I decided to go into the private sector. I went into customer service. I ran a customer service department for about a year and a half, saw that sales was a lot more lucrative, and I didn't have to listen to people yell at me.
And you didn't have to fear for your life, which is a good thing.
Well, that was the biggest thing, was the fact that, I got 3 jobs. My work ethic is, if I enjoy what I do, it's not work, it's life.
That's the way I think it should be.
Exactly. And
so you had the sales job. When did you have a son? So when did that come into the picture?
In 2004. When I was 27, I ended up dating a girl that we weren't really getting along that well, but I was at the point in my life, I've really embraced the fact that, I'm not accepting. You can do what you want to do and choose what you want to do, but it's what I would like to see. And so we ended up having him, and he's, just a beautiful child. He was as easy to raise as, just unbelievable. Slept through the night every night.
That's
just
good.
A perfect baby, and just truly amazing. And before that, I had an accident and ripped some ligaments in my shoulder, and they had put me on, that's right after they came out with OxyContin.
Mm-hmm.
So these great doctors decided to put me on OxyContin and not tell me what it's about.
Wow.
So I'm on this hardcore medication. I don't know anything about it. I don't know that you can abuse it. I don't know anything besides the fact that it's helping me.
Right.
And
right.
So with all of the publicity that it got, people were starting to get educated on what they could do with it. I ended up noticing that my prescription's running out sooner than it should.
Uh-huh.
So I start scratching my head going, okay, there's something going on. Well, I catch my fiance and my brother stealing from me.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So she got heavily addicted, and at 9 months old, I cut us off, took my son. I had 98% custody, and she ended up going to jail for a while. And I was so happy to step up and have my son on my own. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was the most proud moment of my life that, I was able to do that.
That's just awesome, Tyrone. And so you have this person in your life, your son, and let's see. So in the timeline of your life.
I was a full-time single father at the time. Mm-hmm. So I was raising a toddler. I had a 3-year-old. Yeah. And I was going to help an ex-girlfriend out and give her a ride. And a lady that was on her cell phone just cut me off, and I bounced once and hit a tree at 50 miles an hour. So it was like less than 100th of a second that I hit the tree, and I wore gear head to toe. So that's the only thing that saved my life, because I had full boots on, full gloves, like carbon fiber, everything, leathers, except for pants. I got friction burns on my back just because the one bounce that I did bounce, the leather heated up so much that it burned my back.
Oh my goodness.
But that's like the only superficial besides where they cut me. But what ended up happening was I hit the tree, and the bike made it underneath the tree and went through the intersection and hit the medium on the other side.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a really fast accident.
Yeah.
So how my body felt after, just getting out of the hospital, kind of, it felt like I understood how I hit the tree. Yeah. I kind of impacted it with my chest and my right leg.
Okay.
And my left hip.
Got it.
So I broke almost all my ribs except for a few on the right side, and both my lungs collapsed. So right when the accident occurred, all I remember is sitting and looking up and seeing the leaves of the tree, and a lady's face just comes into my view, because all I could see, is that area. And she comes into my view and she asked me what my name was. And I was able to tell her my name with my last breath. So the ambulance got there, and they were pulling out the blanket, because they don't leave somebody dead on the road. They would cover them up.
Oh, boy.
Because I was not breathing at the time.
Oh,
so the lady
that
asked me what my name was told them that no, he said his name just a couple of minutes ago. You have to do something. So they brought me back. They got my heart restarted with the paddles. But once they realized, I'm gurgling up blood and there's, no way I can get oxygen in, by the time Life Flight was refueling 3.5 blocks away.
Oh, wow.
I was on the road.
Right.
So there's so many little tiny nuances that if it didn't happen exactly that way, I wouldn't be here.
Oh, I just got chills. Okay, so then you wake up in the hospital and you have all these injuries.
Well, no, I had a really crazy spiritual experience.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it was because of the drugs that they had me on or because of why they were trying to bring me out or what. I don't know exactly. But the last thing I remember, the only thing I remember from being in the coma, actually, is a big, huge, heart monitor. And, big digital letters, but, old school clock with red digital letters. And it's showing my heart rate lower and lower and lower and lower. And once it got to 0, I heard this voice ask me if I'm prepared to be judged.
No way.
I swear I'm lying.
No, I believe you.
I had done all the stuff that I know that
you need to do.
I'm not saying I'm a saint or anything by any means at all, but I definitely I always try and help out anybody else that needs help.
Yeah, and from hearing your story, I believe that.
Yeah, this is the second half of my life is going to be, but this is where I put my legacy together for my son. He's getting 4 A's and 2 B's. He just got his report card.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, he's doing so good in school. He's loving it. He's got good friends. I mean, he's happy, and he really loves that we have a good relationship. We talk all the time, and we do stuff. It's something that I didn't have whatsoever. So I know exactly what to give him.
That's pretty cool.
Yesterday I got in an argument with my dad, and I actually thanked him for being a
You did? Oh,
yeah.
wow. That's taking the higher road.
Thank you for showing me exactly what not to do.
What not to do, right?
Check this one out. My dad was down in Cabo San Lucas on a surf trip. My mom calls him and says, hey, your son was just in a motorcycle accident and he's in the hospital and they say he might not make it. Guess what my dad said?
I have no idea.
Well, he's sleeping and he won't know.
Oh, wow.
And he stayed for another 2 weeks on a surf trip down in Mexico.
That is pretty cold, I have to say.
Yeah. The first thing, I woke up from the coma, everybody was very gentle, very nice to me. The first thing he said, because we had our project going, I had somebody that was assisting me at the time, and we had our first large harvest. Well, I guess while I was in my coma, there was some weed fronted out, and there wasn't payment coming back.
Oh.
So the first thing my father comes to me out of a coma and says, this happened, what the are you going to do about it?
Oh my gosh.
I'm 109 pounds and they're telling me I might never walk again.
I can't even imagine. How did you respond? Or did you?
I just turned my head and said, leave.
Yeah.
I don't believe in arguments because all it does is get both parties off. I do believe in communication and discussion.
Mm-hmm.
We can agree to disagree, but let's at least listen both of each other's sides and not try to make either of us feel like we're inferior than the other. Because if that starts to occur, then people close down and nothing's heard whatsoever. They're just thinking about what they're going to say next.
Yeah, I agree. And haven't always been able to do that. But you're absolutely right. There's nothing to be gained in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, I learned that really young just because of all of the trauma and fighting and things that I saw going on. I mean, I watched my dad break my mom's jaw when I was about 11. So he's a little short, just a tyrant. And my little brother took after him. And they're best friends now.
Oh, man. So you went through working in sales and having a successful career, outside of the cannabis industry. And then you have this horrific accident, almost died.
Right before the accident is when I started with the first project. And that was a project that I had done with my father. And that's when it first got medically legal. The 215 law was passed. So I knew that I wasn't doing anything wrong. So I was proud to know how to do it because I had friends that did stay in the industry. And I'm not going to say I wasn't involved in things, but I wasn't personally doing things myself.
Sure.
So I did stay versed on all the new and all the updated stuff. So I was able to jump right back into it very easily. And I set up an 18 light grow that we had, really good success with. Our first harvest was phenomenal, and that's the one I was in the coma for.
Wow.
And then after that, it was more or less our next couple. Things just started getting worse and worse because since I was in a wheelchair and couldn't even walk up and down stairs, and it was down a 30 flight of stairs to get to the rooms where the project was, I had to manage this was before, you could get cheap cameras everywhere and stuff like that. They're barely putting cameras on phones at this point in time. And so I had to manage blindly, hoping that these people are doing what they said they're doing. Well, we lose 3 harvests right in a row. So it goes from, because people forgot to water. I see,
because you couldn't get around like you were able to before and kind of keep things under check. Am I hearing that right? Okay.
I couldn't visually make sure things were going on. Then my dad would come by every month and a half or so, go in and look at things, and he would just completely come out and flip out and blame it all on me. And so I would just have to sit and take it. And, I had dealt with him before, and, I know how to deal with, that type of a person. So it didn't bother me as much as it bothered everybody else. Yeah. But when my brother started to lie to him and say that I was, stealing and things like that, that really is what pushed me over the edge to just say, what, forget this. I don't want to have anything to do with either of you. You can have it. I know I have bigger and better things in my life that are set for me to do.
That's a very mature and admirable stance. Yeah, I want to make sure to tie in, your passion for the industry and the important history that kind of is missing in today's, quick and easy green rush type
And that's, with the Emerald
conception.
Triangle, there was all these families that were able to stay up in the hills and hide and, grow and do all these,
Uh-huh.
do all these great things and stuff. But of course, that wouldn't have been facilitated if all of this other stuff didn't happen before that. So they don't have the respect for Southern California as they should, because we are the kind of rat race of California, and they think that they're the farmers of California.
Wow, that's got to be a hard mentality to counter. Especially
really,
with your history, particularly.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. These companies come in and I was brokering trim, and there was a couple of companies that came in California and bought all the trim up, and now it's $2 higher than what it was before, and they just priced me out of everything.
Wow.
That's disgusting. And then if you want to get any type of, position with any of these companies, they want, some resume that shows that you went to some stupid school to get some freaking dumb certificate that shows that you can do something.
It's an industry that is lived experience trumping education. Yeah. I think, as we go forward, there is a place for education, but I definitely can see your point. You can't really understand it.
All of this, there would be no CBD if it wasn't for the pot plant being able to be tested scientifically and analyzed and changed. That wouldn't be possible if everything didn't occur. So all of this, there would be no fiber to make the paper with. That was the one reason they got set as Schedule 1. All the people that own the trees and the redwoods in California were the richest people in the country. So they said, no, we're going to make this stuff as illegal as PCP or methamphetamine or whatever. And they just stuck it on Schedule 1, which no medical value, no nothing. So it's, literally listed just as the same thing as methamphetamine.
Yeah, I know that. I know it's nuts. And, your you're kind of like the bridge between fighting to bring this plant forward. I see that as a thread throughout your life, you've had all these experiences, but you keep rising and just with passion for the plant and what it can do and how it can help people. I think that's what I hear from your story so far.
And the environment. And this is a major event changing product. This is a world changing product.
Oh, I agree.
We can make biodegradable plastics. We can make, for the ignorance that they did for the last 100 years, making it so people didn't have the ability to research it and do all the things that they're doing now, that should be talked about. It's like, okay, yeah, now I'm glad you can do it now, but what about 40 years ago? Why weren't we doing it then when we were running out of trees?
Right. And, asking those questions of the people that were involved in doing that. And yeah, I'd love to hear the answers because that's a big.
It's unbelievable. And of course, the alcohol and the tobacco companies had a lot to do with throwing the money into the pot to make sure it wasn't going to, because of course people consume less alcohol and it's proven that's just how it is.
Oh yeah. 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 I went through, I didn't really know much about cannabis. My family was more of reefer madness kind of. And so I didn't use it until in my 40s. And it was really life-changing when I stopped drinking. That's what I was going to say. Because I started drinking and, I ended up in rehab twice. And after the last time I started, using cannabis here and there, had some scary experiences, but it was all a learning curve and I had a bunch of other meds and stuff. But wow, I started to understand. And, I was listening to more people with some level of knowledge about cannabis and the psychedelic properties of it and processing. And that's how I came into to being passionate about it. It's been very uplifting and rewarding. But also, it's no easy ride either. I think that there's a lot of awarenesses that for me come out when I'm using cannabis that sometimes, make me really look back at things and kind of be motivated to change, but also understand. And some of it's not so easy. So
yeah, and a lot of it, everybody's different.
Yes.
So it's going to affect everybody the first times they use if they use THC in different ways. And if you're not intelligent enough to start small and work your way to where it's going to be right, then you shouldn't be messing around with anything.
Yeah, there's a learning curve. And I think there's just not a lot of talk about that. And I can see why, parents get terrified, because if you don't understand that, you can get into some dangerous and frightening situations. So yeah, you got to respect.
That's the only thing that's really seems to be not really addressed that much, is the fact that they are making these high level, unbelievable strains that are great. I just connected with a guy that's in Santa Cruz that he's doing all the genetics for all the new strains and stuff. And I want to start a nursery for babies down here in Southern California, because they're just so needed. Because
that's cool.
It takes a lot of the hassle out of the farmer's hands to not have to have a whole different section to produce that type of a plant as a baby, knowing exactly what it's going to be.
Huh.
And so he's in Santa Cruz. We had a great conversation yesterday, and he's another person that, was just blown away by how unrespected, the history of it has been.
Yeah. You've just had such a long series of lived experiences, and what motivates you to want to speak out about this in terms of letting, everybody in the cannabis industry know what you've been through? Tell me a little bit about why you think that's important.
Well, I think it's important because, those people need to not feel like they are put down because they didn't have, they didn't have a college fund, and they didn't have parents that, coached them all the way through, and they didn't have a couple $100,000 to start a brokerage firm, or, it's just, the industry is so greedy and just so me, I, my, and then all happy-go-lucky, and nobody even says anything about anything. It really just irks me. I mean, that's so disrespectful. Like my father has, I talked to my dad yesterday, and we got in an argument. I was like, dude, he's driving. He did 5 years between 2011 and 2016. And so he got out right after I had my fire, like about a year after I had the fire.
As far as what do you think, having knowledge of the history of cannabis in this country and everything that you've been through, what kind of experience does that give you that puts you kind of have better knowledge of how to better the industry through, whatever it is that you want to do?
I'm an everythinger.
You're not interested in one thing.
I'm more of an idea person than anything.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's really I get bored really quick.
Me too.
So
I'm
going to start my own podcast. I was just talking about it. So you got to help me out.
I would love to. Oh my God, you'd be awesome.
I want to call it Joker Brokers, because there's all these idiots up in LA and Orange County sending around the same batch picture of money, the same picture of the same stuff, and a bunch of people from out of state or wherever that want to buy a bunch, and it's still all black market. And those guys are calling themselves brokers.
Huh.
Oh yeah, it's such a joke. Tax has made it to where it's back underground.
So
there's maybe a tenth of it is done legally, legitimately with license.
So that's another problem with this influx of new money into the industry, is that, people are so greedy that they'll do anything. They don't care about trying to follow the rules.
Yeah, no, there's no etiquette whatsoever anymore.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just because easy money?
Well, yeah, and most of the people coming into it come from easy life.
Right. Entitled, gotten kind of silver spoon type upbringing.
Yeah, just, never had to worry about the electric bill. Never had to worry about anything serious.
Yeah, it seems like there should be, and you mentioned this in, I don't know whether it was what discussion we were having, but some kind of I've heard of this in Massachusetts. They give grants, they're trying to diversify the industry and provide more, racial equity and just economic equity to the people. And
I got a lender that actually, two lenders that actually reached out to me.
Oh, good.
And I have a couple of really good ideas. Yeah, I have a couple of really good ideas, and that's why I was talking to my dad yesterday, because he's got a 2-acre property that would just be perfect for it. I was talking to a geneticist out of Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And he like does all the new seeds, and he says that they
cool.
he says it's kind of like 70,000 a month of cuttings and seeds. So he said that if we started one down here, he would help us be he'd give us all the customers that we needed down here. So there's already a need for the supply.
Right. So
the
you could just,
already there.
That's
so,
awesome.
We just sell them for, like between $4 and $7 a piece, and just sell hundreds of thousands of them. But that's the safest way of access possible, especially when you're selling it to people that are going to home grow.
Okay.
That's what they should be pushing more, is helping the stores and people that want to help patients take care of each other. So there's some cool opportunities that are arising, and
that's good to hear.
Yeah. I'm still on disability, and I'm still working to get back to where I should be, and I'm working on a book right now and a screenplay.
Are you? So, that's so cool.
Yeah, it would make Shameless look funny.
I believe it. After talking to you several times, and it's amazing that you're here today. So there's a reason, and you've got to get this stuff out.
Yeah, and this is all true, real, firsthand experience, not just something that I heard about from somebody else, the third person did this and that. So it's just, and that's why when I read back through the stuff, I'm like, I don't even believe it.
Thanks so much for listening to our podcast, TSC Talks. Please feel free to navigate to our website, www.tsctalks.com. Please try to support us, make a contribution, say a prayer, leave a review. Tell us you love us, you hate us, but thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more.